Caleb opened his eyes in the dark. Something was wrong. A rustle, then a hesitant hand on the thin curtain of his bunk. A soft whimpering followed. He knew before the whisper came. It was Leo, asking if he could sleep with him, his voice trembling with a fear that sounded all too real. Caleb didn't speak, simply pulled back the heavy comforter in silent invitation. A wave of relief washed over Leo as he scrambled up into the narrow space, the worn mattress springs groaning under the new weight. He mumbled his thanks, explaining that he'd been running into too many creeps lately and that Caleb's bed felt like the last safe place on campus. He needed protection. The dorm bed was small, forcing Leo to press his slender frame against Caleb's solid one. He could feel the dense muscle, the radiating warmth, and the sheer power coiled beneath the skin. It was an immediate comfort, a stark contrast to the chaos of the past few weeks. This place felt secure. The name Caleb sounded strong, dependable, a world away from the delicate image the original, and Kasong might have conjured like a fragile pastry. It didn't fit the 6'1" wall of muscle beside him, but Leo knew the guy was genuinely decent. He was kind, handsome, and almost constitutionally incapable of turning anyone down. A real teddy bear. Right now, for instance, Caleb's gaze was intense in the gloom, his breathing hot against Leo's hair. He gathered Leo closer, carefully tucking the comforter around him. His voice was a low rumble when he finally spoke, promising that he would protect him from now on. It had been a bizarre semester. Leo was keenly aware of his own build. Not short but slender, with a narrow waist, pale skin that flushed easily, and proportions that his friends jokingly claimed made him a natural-born bottom or some kind of faded omega. He'd always laughed it off, but why did people seem to be taking it so seriously? At a fraternity mixer at the community pool, he'd bent over to grab a bottle of sunscreen he'd dropped. A large hand had suddenly clamped onto his rear, squeezing hard. He had yelped, startled, and Vince, a senior from the frat, had cornered him by the lockers. Vince had accused him of trying to seduce him. Leo, terrified, insisted he was straight. Vince had shot back, questioning why, out of everyone there, Leo had chosen to hang out with him, and why his breathing had hitched when Vince had jokingly offered to get that hard-to-reach spot on his back with lotion. He had sneered, asking what else it could be but an invitation when Leo presented himself like that. The implication was vile. Leo had known it was only because Vince was the closest person to him, and his breath had hitched because the guy's casual touch had been startlingly rough. He fled the party early, purely out of fear. To quash the rumors, he started dating a girl, Jessica. A week in, she pulled out an intimidatingly large strap-on, explaining that she was a butch lesbian and wanted to see if he was compatible. Leo was stunned into silence before making a hasty retreat and breaking up with her via a frantic text. On his way back to the dorm, he ran into Vince again, who darkly warned him to sleep with one eye open, because he'd find an opportunity sooner or later. The threat sent him into a spiral of sleepless nights, haunted by nightmarish images of Vince and Jessica cornering him. Finally, in desperation, he had gathered his courage and climbed the ladder to Caleb's bunk. But even here, sleep wouldn't come. Leo shifted in Caleb's arms, trying to find a comfortable position. The muscles under him tightened for a second before consciously relaxing. Caleb's voice was a soft whisper by his ear, asking what was wrong. Now facing him, Leo pressed his luck, asking if Caleb would mind letting him tag along everywhere. The dining hall, class, the library. He was scared. Caleb's voice grew suddenly taut. He asked if someone had been bullying him. Leo hesitated, admitting that it was complicated. He had already quit the fraternity but was terrified of running into Vince again, terrified the man might actually try to sneak into his dorm. Finally, he asked the question that plagued him, his voice small, wondering if he really seemed like he wasn't straight. Caleb went silent. The darkness in their curtained-off space was absolute, hiding everything but the faintest outlines. Yet Leo could feel the weight of Caleb's stare. After a long moment, Caleb's voice came back, heavy and flat. He didn't know. Fine. Leo understood. Heartbreak. Figured. He sighed and began the awkward process of turning over again. A muffled grunt came from behind him. He asked if he had crowded him, apologizing. As he started to turn back, Caleb's arms locked around him, tighter this time. He was completely enveloped in that feverish heat, pinned against a wall of muscle with only thin layers of cotton pajamas between them. Caleb's legs trapped his, making movement impossible. Leo struggled for a second, but it was useless. The sheer strength was overwhelming, but it also felt incredibly safe. He felt like Caleb could take on 10 Vinces without breaking a sweat. Caleb's voice, huskier than before, commanded him to stop moving, that the bed frame would squeak. Leo went still, cautiously resting his cheek against Caleb's chest, the firm muscle a strange and comforting pillow. He envied this physique. If he were built like this, no one would dare mess with him. His thoughts drifted, and finally, cocooned in this small, secure space, he fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, he woke to an empty dorm room. Their first class was at 10. He couldn't believe his roommates were already gone by 9. As he lamented their work ethic, the door opened and Caleb walked in carrying a paper bag. Leo expressed his surprise, having assumed Caleb was already at the library studying. Caleb just ruffled his hair and said gently that he was matching his schedule, reminding him of his promise to protect him. He told him to come down and eat breakfast. Leo was touched. He started to climb down from the top bunk, moving headfirst. The motion made his pajama shirt ride up, exposing a strip of pale, slender waist to the cool morning air. The sudden chill on his skin made him shiver, and Vince's ugly words echoed in his head. He consciously tried to correct his posture to move more like a man, but he felt awkward. As he struggled, a flicker of movement caught his eye. A hand, large and well-defined, was reaching for him. He flinched, suddenly wary. But Caleb only tugged the hem of his pajama shirt down, covering his exposed skin, murmuring that he shouldn't catch a cold. Leo's tension melted away. This, he thought, was how a real straight guy acted. He was just being paranoid, assuming everyone was after him. Not everyone was a predator. He decided to start a campaign to project a more masculine image. Caleb could protect him for a while, but if he didn't fix the root of the problem, the trouble would never end. He started going to the gym with Caleb, working on his chest, legs, and shoulders. After a while, the only noticeable change was that his glutes were firmer and higher from all the squats. He complained to Caleb, squeezing his bicep in frustration and roaring about the unfairness of genetics. Physical changes weren't working, so he tried other things. He started skipping sunscreen, hoping the harsh sun would darken his skin. He forced himself to eat more, hoping to thicken his waist. He looked in the mirror every day, searching for any visible effect. Caleb would dutifully reassure him, his gaze slightly unfocused as he insisted that Leo was definitely looking bigger, tanner, and that his body hair was much thicker. Leo, trusting Caleb's reputation for honesty, believed him. His other 2 roommates were often gone for the night, so most of the time it was just him and Caleb. One evening, Caleb came out of the bathroom to see Leo with his shirt lifted, studying his reflection. Seeing him, Leo pulled his shirt up higher and puffed out his chest, asking Caleb if he thought it was normal for a straight guy's nipples to be pink. Caleb, usually so composed, turned beet red. His eyes darted away, wanting to look but not daring to. He stammered that he didn't know. Leo found it amusing that a guy his size could be so bashful. He decided to investigate further, pulling at Caleb's collar to get a look for comparison. Caleb's arm shot out, wrapping around Leo and pulling him flush against his chest. Leo's face was pressed into hard, warm muscle that smelled of fresh soap. He couldn't help but rub his cheek against it admiringly. A shudder went through Caleb's body, and a low vibration rumbled from his chest. He said they could look later when it was dark. As soon as the dorm lights went out, Leo was on Caleb's bed, patting the space beside him. Caleb turned off the main lights, took a deep breath as if steeling himself, and climbed in. The room was plunged into darkness, save for the dim glow of a small night light clipped to the bed frame. Leo lunged, eagerly unbuttoning Caleb's pajama top. Caleb's breathing grew heavier, his chest rising and falling dramatically. It was an impressive sight up close. But as Leo looked closer, he saw that Caleb's weren't pink, more masculine. He felt a pang of disappointment and looked down at his own. Caleb seemed to be overheating. He left his shirt open, taking long swigs from a water bottle. He tried to comfort Leo, explaining it was probably genetics, but that friction from clothing could cause skin to darken over time due to melanin deposits. Leo rubbed the spot through his shirt. A strange electric jolt shot through him, and he gasped. Caleb, seemingly oblivious, looked at him with an expression of pure, academic curiosity and asked what was wrong. Leo took a deep breath, explaining that he didn't have much time to rub them every day and that doing it himself felt weird and embarrassing. Caleb offered to help. Leo looked at his earnest, innocent expression and couldn't bring himself to refuse. He asked how that would work. Caleb explained that since Leo always fell asleep instantly and he was a slower sleeper, he could just do it for him for a little while each night when no one was around. Leo considered it and agreed, turning his back to Caleb and burrowing under the covers, telling him to begin. Caleb's eyes darkened in the dim light. His voice was raspy as he agreed. He wrapped his arms around Leo, his long fingers finding their mark. He started gently, just a light touch with his fingertips. Leo tried to remain calm. Seeing that he was okay, Caleb began to rub in slow circles through the fabric. Leo bit down on the corner of the comforter, trying to still the tremors that racked his body. Amidst the strange, trembling sensations, he drifted off to sleep. The next morning, he eagerly checked the results. The area was a little swollen and tender, and the color had deepened to a ripe red. He announced happily that it was working and they should continue that night. Caleb, his eyes downcast, swallowed hard and agreed. Leo excitedly climbed down the ladder, urging Caleb to get up so he could treat him to breakfast. Caleb remained sitting up in bed, his knees bent and the comforter pulled up high. He said he was still waking up and told Leo to go wash up first. As Leo happily headed to the bathroom, he noticed a dull ache in his rear, as if he'd been chafed by something in his sleep. He dismissed it, his mind focused on the success of his project. He'd intended to treat Caleb to a huge, deluxe American breakfast of pancakes, bacon, sausage, and eggs, but the dining hall was packed. Caleb sent him to find a table. Just as he secured a spot, a familiar figure appeared beside him. It was Jessica, his ex of 1 week. She grabbed his arm, launching into an apology, calling him baby and admitting she should have been upfront about her preferences before they got together. Leo told her it was over. She ignored him, continuing to plead. Just as he was about to firmly tell her off, a tray clattered down on the table beside them. The temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees. It was Caleb, radiating a glacial aura. He stated flatly that getting a girlfriend was certainly a good way to dispel rumors, then told them to enjoy their meal and walked away without looking back. Jessica was intimidated by his presence. Her eyes darted between Leo and Caleb's retreating back. She murmured her approval of Caleb's physique, then looked at Leo with an expression of pity, saying she now understood that she couldn't give him what he truly needed and that no toy could compete with a man like that. She told him to go chase his happiness. Leo was left sputtering in confusion. Caleb seemed genuinely angry, and Leo couldn't figure out why. He arrived late to class to find the only empty seat was in the front row next to Caleb. He hesitantly approached, asking if he could sit there. Caleb gave him a fleeting glance but said nothing. Leo took that as a yes. Out of habit, he reached over and started playing with Caleb's fingers, but Caleb pulled his hand away. He coldly suggested Leo go hold his girlfriend's hand. Leo started to protest that she wasn't his girlfriend, but the professor walked in and he had to swallow the words. After class, Caleb left without a word. Leo followed at a safe distance, watching him go to the dining hall and then the library, feeling lost. That night, all 4 roommates were in the dorm. Caleb sat on his bed, wearing glasses and reading under a small lamp, looking studious and remote. He had just showered, and his hair was still damp. He hadn't buttoned the top of his shirt, and Leo could see the faint outline of his abs. He almost said something but stopped himself. It wasn't a big deal between guys. He retreated to his own bunk. Caleb was mad, and it was better not to provoke him. Mark, the dorm's RA, asked if he was turning in already. Leo confirmed he was. Mark said he'd put on headphones then, and Caleb's curtain was yanked shut with a sharp sound. He seemed even angrier. Mark then brought up an intercollegiate mixer at a lake resort over the weekend, asking if anyone was interested. Ryan piped up from his bunk that he was busy chatting with his girlfriend. Leo said he wasn't sure about his schedule and would let him know. Mark then asked if things hadn't worked out with his cousin, Jessica. Leo had forgotten the connection. He mumbled that they just didn't have much in common. He then gestured to Caleb's curtain and said he was probably asleep. Mark told him to just ask Caleb in the morning. Leo pulled his own curtain shut. The atmosphere between them was definitely not good. As the room felt dark, he tossed and turned. He couldn't get used to sleeping alone again. Caleb had recently switched to silk sheets, and Leo missed the cool, smooth feel. His own standard-issue cotton felt rough, the mattress hard. His back ached. He wondered if Caleb would throw him out if he tried to sneak back into his bed. It was 3 in the morning. The only sound was the steady breathing of his roommates. He was still wide awake when he heard the creak of a mattress. Footsteps approached his bunk. His curtain was pulled aside. He squeezed his eyes shut as warm fingers brushed his cheek. Then the mattress dipped as a body slid in behind him. The heat, the feel, the embrace were all achingly familiar. Caleb's lips were right next to his ear, his hot breath sending a shiver down his spine as he whispered, asking why he couldn't sleep. Leo mumbled that he didn't know. He was confused by this hot and cold behavior. Caleb was a puzzle. Caleb then accused him of being a little liar who didn't keep his word. Confused, Leo asked what he was talking about. Caleb's arm tightened around him, pulling their bodies flush. His hand slid up from Leo's waist to his chest, and his lips brushed the back of Leo's neck. He gave a gentle pinch through the fabric, right on the spot they had been working on. He reminded Leo of his promise that morning to continue that night. A shocked sound escaped Leo's throat. Caleb's other hand swiftly covered his mouth, hushing him so he wouldn't wake the others. The words, the situation, it felt illicit, like they were having an affair. Leo whispered for him to be gentle, that it was still sore. A low chuckle rumbled through Caleb's chest as he promised he would be. His touch softened, now just a light caress of his fingertips. The area was still tender from the night before, and the sensation was a strange mix of pain and pleasure. It was overwhelming. Leo felt that something was profoundly wrong, yet he had no desire to push Caleb away. In fact, some part of him wanted more. He hissed in discomfort. Caleb, misinterpreting, suggested he switch to the other side. Before Leo could object, Caleb's hand was already there. He covered Leo's mouth again, telling him to be quiet and go to sleep. Leo closed his eyes in Caleb's embrace, his mind in turmoil. He decided to just let it go. It would be fine once he was asleep. But in the pre-dawn light, he found himself in the communal bathroom, quietly washing his underwear. When he returned to the room, he looked at Caleb's sleeping face and was consumed by self-doubt. They seemed to have reconciled. When Leo mentioned he wanted to go to the resort mixer, Caleb thought for a moment and then said he would go too. The mixer was being hosted by a neighboring university at a fancy lake resort. They didn't have classes, so it was a perfect excuse for a getaway. The night before they left, Leo was restless again, lying in Caleb's bed. He asked paranoidly if Caleb was going to abandon him for some pretty girl. Caleb just flicked his forehead and said dryly that he should be the one saying that. He was going to keep an eye on Leo, just in case anyone else tried to harass him. The next morning, Leo woke up early. He tried to untangle himself from Caleb's arm, which was draped possessively across his chest. He let out a sharp hiss of pain. The sound woke Caleb, who asked what was wrong. Leo complained that it hurt. Caleb, now fully awake, said he'd take a look and matter-of-factly lifted Leo's pajama shirt. Leo started to protest. Caleb was getting far too comfortable with this. It used to be Leo who would lift his own shirt while Caleb averted his gaze. But lately, Caleb had taken to performing the morning inspection himself. Leo chalked it up to the casual intimacy of male friendship. Caleb leaned in, his gaze fixed on Leo's chest. His expression grew intense. He noted that the color was deeper but the skin wasn't broken, so it was fine. Leo breathed a sigh of relief. He said they could take a break for a couple of days while they were away. Caleb said that wouldn't be necessary. Leo protested that it was really sore and he was afraid the skin would break. Caleb replied that there was another way. Leo was puzzled. Caleb, his head still hovering just inches from Leo's chest, looked up, his eyes dark. A tip of a red tongue flickered over his lips. He said he could use this instead. The entire bus ride, Leo was distracted. He kept replaying Caleb's words, the look in his eyes. What did he mean by that? It felt like things were spiraling out of his control, and the most terrifying part was a secret, thrilling sense of anticipation deep inside him. He tried to shut it down. Caleb was just a kind, helpful, straight guy. He had to stop these thoughts. His internal chaos was interrupted by the sight of Vince at the resort. Of course, a creep like him would be at an event like this. Leo grabbed Caleb's arm and suggested they find a quiet corner, ostensibly to relax but really to keep an eye on Vince. Caleb followed without question. After a few drinks, Leo had to use the restroom. He told Caleb he'd be right back and asked him to watch Vince. The resort was huge and he almost got lost on the way back. When he returned, Vince was gone from his spot. He was over by Caleb, trying to chat him up. A surge of irrational anger shot through Leo. He saw Vince trying to offer Caleb a drink and stormed over, shoving Vince away and yelling at him to leave Caleb alone. Vince stumbled, spilling his drink, and cursed. He sneered at Leo, reminding him of his earlier threat and mocking him for claiming to be straight. He glanced between them, then scoffed that even if he wasn't straight, he wouldn't be interested in someone like Leo. Caleb stood up. Vince hadn't seemed to realize how tall and powerfully built he was. A flicker of fear crossed Vince's face, and he mumbled something before scurrying away. Leo breathed a sigh of relief and turned to check on Caleb, asking if he was okay. Then he saw the empty glass on the table. He grabbed Caleb's face, frantically asking if he drank what Vince gave him. Terrified the creep had drugged him. He asked if he felt dizzy or hot, if they needed to go to the hospital. Caleb started to say he was fine but then stopped, a blush creeping up his neck. He admitted he did feel a little dizzy. Panic seized Leo. He insisted they go to the hospital and call the police. Caleb grabbed his hand, assuring him it wasn't that serious and he'd be fine after some rest. He seemed lucid enough, so Leo relented. While other people's nights were just beginning, they were heading back to their hotel room. Leo supported Caleb, who leaned heavily on him, his steps becoming unsteady. In the room, he helped Caleb to the couch. He asked again if he was sure he was okay. Caleb insisted he was. Leo decided to take a quick shower. When he came out, Caleb was still sitting there, his face flushed, staring at the floor. He saw Leo and shakily walked into the bathroom with his robe. Leo lay down on one of the beds, a strange feeling nagging at him. A few minutes later, Caleb emerged, wrapped in a robe, and lay down on the bed next to him. Leo pointed out that there were two beds. Caleb's skin was burning hot. As Leo's cool hand brushed against his, a low groan escaped Caleb's throat. He rolled over, pinning Leo beneath him, the veins on his arms standing out. Leo stammered, his mind racing. This was not the behavior of someone who was fine. His anti-gay plan was about to go up in flames. If something happened, how would Caleb react when he was sober? Their friendship would be ruined. He closed his eyes in resignation. He felt Caleb's teeth gently tugging at the tie of his robe. He peeked through one eye. Caleb's face was flushed, his eyes full of raw desire. His words were a hot whisper against Leo's skin. He was here to follow through on what he said that morning. The next second, a wet, hot sensation touched his skin. His entire body went numb. As Caleb raised his head to look at him, he murmured something about needing to be symmetrical. Leo tried to push him away, but his arms were weak. He suspected his own drink had been tampered with. Otherwise, why did he feel so hot? He wrapped his arms around Caleb's head, thinking that maybe this wasn't so bad after all. Then Caleb's mouth was on his, kissing him deeply. He couldn't breathe. As he struggled, his thigh brushed against something hard and solid. He froze. Fine. He was trapped. He gave in. He had thought Jessica's toys were impressive, but Caleb was on another level. Later that night, Caleb was still holding him in a death grip in his sleep. Leo, needing to breathe, carefully extricated himself and collapsed onto the other bed. The next morning, he woke to see Caleb sitting up in bed, looking dazed. Leo sat up too, acting as normal as possible, wishing him a good morning and asking how he slept. Caleb just nodded. He didn't seem to remember anything. A secret wave of relief washed over Leo. It was better this way. He announced brightly that he was ready to have a great day. Back at school, their dynamic had shifted into a strange, undefined space. Leo, consumed by guilt, was afraid to be too familiar. Caleb, however, now seemed to be the one constantly seeking him out. The roles had reversed. Caleb had shed his shyness and was perfectly comfortable with their close friendship, while Leo, who had once been so open, now blushed at the slightest touch. His heart hammered in his chest whenever Caleb held him at night. He had to face the terrifying truth. He was falling for a straight guy. Caleb held out a spoonful of a milkshake. Leo automatically took a bite. Caleb then used the same spoon to take a bite himself. Leo's face burst into flames. The equilibrium was shattered, once again, by Jessica. She had decided she was now a fan of their couple and treated Leo like her gay best friend. She timed her ambush perfectly, catching him alone in a coffee shop while Caleb was at a public speaking competition. She was grinning conspiratorially, and Leo felt a sense of dread. She said she was collecting material for her fanfiction and demanded all the details. Leo insisted there was nothing to tell, but she just laughed, pointing out his lovesick expression. Then she presented him with a brightly wrapped gift, telling him it was something to enhance their relationship and that he should open it with Caleb. Just then, Caleb appeared at the door. He gave Jessica an icy glare, and she shivered, telling Leo to go. On the walk back, Caleb casually asked what they were talking about. Leo, feeling guilty, said it was nothing. Caleb then asked if he still had feelings for her. Leo vehemently denied it, explaining she was just dropping off a gift for us. He emphasized the us. Caleb said they should open it. Not right here, Leo protested. He pointed to a bench on the quad and they sat down. As Leo wrestled with the layers of wrapping paper, his phone buzzed incessantly. It was Jessica, asking if they'd opened it together. He handed the box to Caleb and texted back a quick yes. Her reply came instantly. OMG, you can still text? Is he no good in bed? Before Leo could respond, Caleb had the box open. Leo leaned over to see something even more outrageous than what Jessica had shown him before. He slammed the box shut. Caleb glanced at his phone screen, and a small, knowing smile touched his lips. His voice was low and amused. If I'm any good or not, you'd be the one to know, wouldn't you? The world crashed down around Leo. He stammered, asking if Caleb remembered that night. Caleb replied that he'd never said he forgot. He then gestured to the gift, asking if Leo wanted to try it. Leo, completely flustered, asked why he would want to try it. He felt like his brain was short-circuiting. Caleb's expression shifted, a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. He asked, "What do you think we've been doing all this time? Aren't we dating?" Leo stared at him, utterly bewildered. Dating? Nobody told him. He said that this was just how they always were, and besides, Caleb was straight. Caleb countered, asking when he had ever said that. Leo recalled the first week of school. Caleb just shrugged, saying he didn't remember, but he wasn't now. Leo felt cornered. Caleb took a deep breath, his hands clenching at his sides. He was nervous. I'm telling you now. I like you, Leo. Can we be boyfriends? Leo's mind was still reeling. He noticed that even Caleb's knuckles were pink. He trembled and finally spoke, admitting that he liked him too, but he couldn't accept not being straight. He didn't want to be someone's wife. Caleb's face lit up as if he hadn't heard the last part. He pulled Leo into a tight hug. Okay, husband, he whispered, you can call me your wife. Leo's ears burned. Caleb took his hand, holding the box. He asked where they were going. Caleb's smile was wicked. To find a place to use this. We shouldn't let a thoughtful gift go to waste. From the first week of school, Caleb had noticed Leo. He was beautiful, exactly his type. During their first dorm social, Caleb had sat next to him, secretly admiring him. Leo had been complaining to everyone that people always thought he was gay, but he was straight. When Leo had looked at him, Caleb had dropped his gaze and mumbled that he was homophobic. Leo, delighted, had declared him a good brother and drunkenly slung an arm around his neck. Caleb had sighed internally. He was in trouble. Back in the hotel room, the pieces started clicking into place for Leo. He pushed the kissing monster off him and eyed him suspiciously. Something's not right, he mumbled. I feel like I've been set up. Caleb tried to get up, but Leo planted a foot on his shoulder, telling him to stay kneeling. When did you start liking me? He demanded. Caleb stammered. I knew it, Leo said. Confess everything. Caleb, still on the floor, swallowed hard. Don't be mad, he pleaded. It was love at first sight. So you were the first one after me. You're the biggest creep of them all. Leo grabbed the large toy Jessica had gifted them. It made a surprisingly effective weapon and started whacking him with it. What else are you hiding? Caleb grunted, a fire igniting in his eyes. That night at the resort, I was faking it. He looked up at Leo. Hit me, baby. Please. Then can we go back to kissing? Leo stared. He really had fallen for a genuine creep.